My grandfather did 3 things every morning that looked absolutely ridiculous. I'm talking about odd little routines that made the neighbors stare and honestly made me question his sanity. No one understood why he did them, not even me. But here's the strange part. He had more energy at 80 than most people in their 40s. His mind was sharp, his body moved with ease, and he never drank coffee. Ever. I ignored his weird little secrets for decades, until I turned 60 and started feeling like my body had forgotten how to wake up. So, out of desperation, I gave one of his strange habits a try. Then another. Then the third. And what happened next genuinely shocked me. Before we get into it, tap that like button and subscribe if you're curious, because these next 3 rituals might sound bizarre, but they may be the exact thing your energy's been waiting for. Harlan was the kind of man people whispered about at the diner, but secretly admired. He lived in a creaky farmhouse on the edge of a forgotten Arkansas town, surrounded by blackberry bushes and hand-carved wind chimes that never stopped singing. No internet, no TV, just books, bees, and his morning rituals that made every visitor raise an eyebrow. At 82, he chopped his own firewood, fixed his own roof, and still made his own sourdough starter from wild yeast. And yet, when people met him, the first thing they noticed wasn't his strength, it was his glow. His skin looked alive. His eyes sparkled with something no medication could give. He had this way of making time feel slower when you were around him. Conversations with Harlan didn't involve scrolling or multitasking. He looked you dead in the eye, like every word mattered. And that's because, to him, it did. He believed energy wasn't something you bought in a bottle or borrowed from caffeine. It was something you cultivated, deliberately, daily. His philosophy was simple. Modern folks are tired because they've forgotten the old rhythms. The earth still hums. You just gotta listen. Harlan's house smelled like eucalyptus and old wood. His kettle whistled every morning at exactly 6:05. He never used a clock. Said the birds let him know when it was time to start the day. And he always began that day with 3 strange habits, rituals, he swore were handed down from his grandmother, who lived to be 104 without a single pill. He didn't care if they looked strange. Truth doesn't need approval, he'd say with a smirk. What fascinated me most wasn't the rituals themselves, it was the fact that Harlan never got tired. Not in the way most people talk about. He didn't slump. He didn't complain about the afternoon fog. While others his age were slowing down, Harlan seemed to rise up, like his energy had matured instead of drained. And he never acted like he was special. He just did the same 3 things every day, like brushing his teeth. He told me once, "The body is smarter than you think, but it needs a little direction. A nudge, not a shove." Back then, I didn't believe him. Now, I understand why everything he did mattered. Ritual number 1. The ice face splash and sun gaze combo. The first time I saw Harlan plunge his face into that chipped porcelain bowl, I thought he was trying to punish himself. He'd fill it to the brim with well water, ice cold. Even in summer, drop in a sprig of rosemary or lemon peel, and then lean forward like he was about to pray. But instead, he'd take one long breath and dunk his whole face into the freezing water, holding it there until the chill made his shoulders twitch. No towel, no flinch, just quiet, focused stillness. After that, he'd walk outside, barefoot, and turn his face toward the rising sun. No sunglasses, no phone in hand, just the sound of birds and wind, and his bare feet grounding into the grass. He'd stand like that for 2 or 3 minutes, unmoving, letting the light hit his eyes. And every time, I'd ask, "Why do you do this?" He'd say, "Because it tells my body it's time to live again." Years later, I realized Harlan had stumbled onto something that scientists are now calling one of the most powerful natural stimulants for the human brain: cold exposure paired with morning sunlight. When you immerse your face in cold water, especially in the morning, it triggers something called the mammalian dive reflex. This reflex rapidly lowers your heart rate and increases blood flow to the brain. It's your body's ancient way of protecting the core during cold shock. But here's the twist. This reaction also calms the nervous system and sharpens mental clarity. especially in older adults who often struggle with sluggish circulation. Then there's the barefoot sun ritual. Morning sunlight, particularly within the first hour after waking, helps reset your circadian rhythm. Light enters the eyes and signals the brain to release cortisol in healthy amounts, while also triggering a delayed release of melatonin later at night. This means better focus during the day and deeper sleep at night. The grounding from standing barefoot on natural earth also helps reduce inflammation and balance the nervous system. More and more studies are backing this, and wellness communities from Scandinavia to California are adopting these simple but powerful practices. But Harlan didn't know about studies. He just knew how he felt afterward, alive, alert, and peaceful. It wasn't some trendy hack. It was his daily promise to start the day with intention, not noise. And when I finally tried it myself, iced water, bare feet, morning sun, I felt something shift. Not just in my energy, but in my mood. Like my brain finally remembered it wasn't supposed to feel foggy. Have you ever tried morning sun therapy or cold exposure? Tell us what happened in the comments. But his next ritual? I'll admit, I laughed out loud the first time I saw it, until I saw what it did to his blood pressure. Ritual number 2, the onion sock trick. I still remember the night I caught Harlan slipping slices of red onion into his socks, like it was the most normal thing in the world. He didn't explain it, didn't hide it, just peeled, sliced, and stuffed them right against the arches of his feet, then pulled his wool socks on and climbed into bed like he was preparing for battle. The smell alone was enough to send a skunk running. I stood there in the doorway, speechless. He just looked at me, grinned, and said, "You'll understand when you're older." For a while, I dismissed it as another one of his eccentric habits. But the older I got, and the more sleepless nights I racked up, I started to reconsider. One night, after 3 straight days of puffy ankles and restless legs, I decided to give the onion trick a shot. I didn't expect much, but to my surprise, I slept through the night and woke up with lighter feet and a clearer head. Coincidence? Maybe, but it didn't feel like one. The idea behind the onion sock ritual comes from a blend of folk medicine and Eastern reflexology. In reflexology, the soles of the feet are considered a map of the body's organs and energy lines. The theory is that placing certain substances, like onions, against these pressure points can stimulate healing pathways, reduce inflammation, and support detoxification. Now, let's be clear, modern science hasn't confirmed all the claims behind this trick. There's no double-blind study proving that onions in your socks cure disease or draw out toxins, but that hasn't stopped thousands of people across generations, cultures, and now TikTok from swearing by it. Why onions? They're naturally antimicrobial, rich in sulfur compounds, and known for pulling in moisture from the air, some say even from the body. Historically, onions were used to fight infections and even placed in rooms during plagues to trap sickness. Strange, yes, but not without precedent. For seniors, what matters most isn't whether it fits neatly into a research paper. It's whether it works. And for many, this little ritual seems to help with swollen feet, restless legs, and even better sleep. It could be the gentle pressure, the grounding effect, or the stimulation of circulation through those powerful foot nerve endings. Or maybe it's just the comfort of doing something intentional for your body before bed. As for me, I don't do it every night, but on the evenings when my legs feel heavy, or when sleep feels far away, I'll slice up half a red onion and let Harlan's wisdom do the rest. Would you ever try this? Or have you already? Let us know in the comments. Now, his next ritual? It was quiet. No slicing, no splashing, no standing in the sun. But it changed the way his brain worked after 80. And I've never looked at silence the same way since. Ritual number 3, the silent humming hour. Every afternoon, usually around the time the sun started casting long shadows on the porch, Harlan would disappear into his study, close the door, and sit in complete stillness. No books, no radio, no visitors, just a chair, a cushion, and an hour carved out of the day that no one was allowed to interrupt. At first, I thought he was napping, but one day, I leaned close to the door and heard it, a low, steady hum. Not a song, not a chant, just a deep vibration rising from his chest like a slow-motion thunder. He called it his quiet tune-up, said it kept his brain smooth and his heart soft. It wasn't religious. It wasn't meditative in the traditional sense. It was just humming, long, slow, and deliberate. And the more I learned about it later in life, the more I realized he was tapping into something profoundly healing, without ever reading a single study about it. Recent neuroscience confirms what ancient practices have hinted at for centuries. Humming stimulates the vagus nerve. This is the superhighway of the parasympathetic nervous system, the part of your body responsible for rest, recovery, digestion, and mental clarity. When you hum, you create a vibration that travels through the vocal cords and sinuses, down into the chest, where it gently massages the vagus nerve. The result? Lower heart rate, reduced blood pressure, calmer breath, and better emotional regulation. For older adults, especially those dealing with anxiety, memory issues, or sensory overload, this is no small thing. Some senior wellness programs are now incorporating daily humming or vocal toning into their cognitive care routines. It's low impact, easy to do anywhere, and completely free. You don't need perfect pitch. You don't even need to hum a melody. The magic is in the vibration itself. Harlan didn't call it vagal stimulation. He just knew it helped him sleep better, think clearer, and feel less heavy in his chest. When the world gets loud, he once told me, you don't have to get louder. You just have to tune your own frequency. So I tried it. I set a timer for 2 minutes, closed my eyes, and hummed. Not for anyone else. Not to sound good, just to feel. And something shifted. My breath deepened. My jaw unclenched. The buzz in my mind quieted down. It was like finding a tuning fork inside myself I didn't know I had. Try humming right now for 30 seconds. Just let the sound rise from your chest and vibrate in your skull. Did you feel a shift? Tell us below in the comments. Because what Harlan discovered in that quiet room wasn't just a trick. It was a daily reminder that energy doesn't always roar. Sometimes it hums. I never planned on doing any of the things Harlan did. Honestly, I spent most of my adult life trying to be the exact opposite of him. He lived slow, I moved fast. He believed in old ways, I believed in modern fixes. For decades, I told myself that if something couldn't be solved with a pill, an app, or a shortcut, it probably wasn't worth the effort. But then something shifted. It wasn't one big health scare or dramatic fall. It was more like a slow, creeping fog that settled in after. I turned 60. I started waking up already tired. Not just physically, but mentally. The morning felt like a mountain I had to climb just to get to normal. My thoughts were muddy. My joints stiffened even when I hadn't done anything the day before. Sleep felt shallow. And worst of all, I began to lose that spark, like my body and mind were quietly disconnecting from each other. One morning, after yet another restless night, I sat at the kitchen table, staring blankly into my coffee, and a memory of Harlan hit me out of nowhere. Not his words, not his face, just an image of him, barefoot, humming, sunlight dancing on his skin. I didn't plan it, but I got up, filled a bowl with cold water, and dunked my face. Then I stepped out onto the back porch and stood still in the light, like he used to. For the first time in months, I didn't feel numb. That was the beginning. Over the next few weeks, I started adding each ritual back into my life, not because I believed in some miracle cure, but because I was desperate for something real, something simple that I could control. And slowly, I began to notice the changes. I didn't need 3 cups of coffee just to feel human. My mood became steadier. I felt more present. I started sleeping through the night. That afternoon fog that used to wrap around me like a wet blanket, it lifted. I even began to enjoy the quiet again, to feel energy not as a jolt, but as a deep current running under everything. It wasn't about becoming someone new. It was about remembering who I used to be before the noise, the stress, the shortcuts, before I started ignoring my body's whispers until they turned into shouts. What surprised me most wasn't that the rituals worked. It was how familiar they felt once I let them in. Like they had always been waiting, quietly, patiently, for me to come back. Just like Harlan did. We live in a time where everything has to be explained, proven, backed by data, and delivered in a neat package. But not everything worth doing fits inside a study or a step-by-step guide. Some things are passed down, felt in the bones, remembered by the body even when the mind forgets. Harlan's rituals weren't flashy. They didn't promise instant results or go viral. But they worked, not because they were perfect, but because they were consistent, grounded, and human. I used to think bizarre meant outdated, that if something looked strange, it couldn't possibly be helpful. But the older I get, the more I see how wrong that thinking was. Sometimes the strangest habits are the ones built on wisdom we've forgotten. Wisdom shaped by paying attention to nature, by noticing how we feel instead of how we look, by trusting the slow rhythms of the body over the fast pace of the world. These rituals, cold water on the face, sunlight on the skin, onions in your socks, a quiet hum in a silent room, they aren't magic, but they are medicine. The kind you don't need a prescription for. The kind that asks for your time, not your money. And the kind that, when practiced with intention, has the power to bring you back to yourself. If you're over 60 and feeling like your energy just isn't what it used to be, don't be so quick to write off the old ways. What looks unusual on the outside might be exactly what your nervous system, your heart, and your spirit have been needing. Sometimes the weirdest habits carry the deepest truths. Don't dismiss what kept our elders strong. These energy rituals may look strange, but they just might save your spark. If this sparked something in you, hit that like button, subscribe for more better aging advice, and share this with someone who misses their grandparents too.